Today's podcast is definitely going to be, I'm going to say, a Marmite podcast. Ask yourself the question, do you like poetry? There's a great quote from Robert Frost that says, "Poetry is when an emotion has found its thought and the thought has found words." And I think that's a great introduction to today's episode, because my guest today is Gerard Devine. Gerard is an award-winning Irish poet who lives a life less ordinary than most, because the former carpenter is now a full-time firefighter in Dublin. Prior to joining the fire brigade, Gerard spent many years working on the building sites of Dublin, Boston and San Francisco, which we speak all about today. He still plies his building skills by volunteering to work in third world countries such as Africa, which comes up in our conversation today. An animal and nature lover, Gerard recently moved into an inspiring Wicklow mountains where he lives in harmony with nature with his wife Steph and their rescue dog, who also gets a mention in today's episode. Again, this guy's life is just filled with experiences and emotion, and it shouldn't come as any surprise that the beautiful poetry this man has created comes out of a vessel such as this. Now, while his favourite poet is the wonderful WB Yeats, much of Gerard's poetry is inspired by Irish ballads and singers such as McGowan and Christy. We go in so many great directions today, and Gerard shares 3 or 4 of some of his most famous poems, so you're going to get some really good food for the soul on today's episode. Some serious food for thought as well. Like the self-awareness, self-reflection that this man has and the way that he manages to articulate it through his art is truly incredible. Now, before we jump into the episode, if you do want to access more of this poetry, if you want to reach Gerard himself, we have put his email address, a link to his website and a link to his Instagram. So please do go into the notes and have a look at those. And if you want to get a signed copy sent to yourself of The Firefighter's Call, it's one of his most famous poems, you can get it there as well. And all the proceeds for this do go to charity. So there's lots of great stuff in here today, folks. A real true embodiment of the firefighter mindset and how he's used his skill and his art to help articulate some of the challenges of trauma, of that sense of lostness, that sense of identity that come from so many rough and ready knuckle dragger style jobs that have really been done by those individuals who have built the bedrock of our communities all over the world. There's so much great stuff in today's episode. I absolutely love my conversation with Gerard, and I really hope you enjoy it too. Thanks for coming back to the podcast, and I'll see you on the other side.
Like the shit we have to do sometimes, that if I do get a chance to play pool and drink a cup of tea, I'm going to take it, man. I'm going to jump on that because that's the good side of the job, because when we work, we work. So I wrote this poem called I Cut Rope, and it's basically about a horrible aspect of our job is cutting people down. And I showed it to a friend of mine. As I said, I haven't shared this poem, but a pal of mine in work, a guy who I really admired, I said, look, I wrote this poem and I wanted to show it to you because he cut 3 people down in the 1 week. And the third one was outside of work. It was his own brother. Okay? So this is called I Cut Rope. I cut rope while other folk go merry on their way. I cut rope so many times, it's really hard to say. I cut rope one-handed as I clung on to the tree. I cut rope that was taut from lifeless gravity. I cut rope in sadness as loved ones start to fray. I cut rope not for love, I cut rope for pay. I cut rope in urgency, I never hesitate. I cut rope with the blade as colleagues bear the weight. I cut rope through tragedy for those who feel alone. I cut rope with great respect as if it were my own. I cut rope for young and old that haunt me evermore. Oh, what I'd give to never ever cut the rope once more. I wasn't long in the job and I was in the back of the ambulance and we were bringing this kid who's very badly disabled, and he was in his mid-20s, but he couldn't communicate. The only way he could communicate was literally through his eyes and his hands worked. That was pretty much it. But I'm in the back of the ambulance and I'm saying to him, like, look, you're going to be okay. And he reached and he grabbed my hand and he squeezed it, like, and I looked at him and he kind of nearly tears in his eyes. And I looked away, I couldn't look, and I went to look away and he squeezed my hand. And he's like, look at me. You know, and I that's what he was saying to me. And I remember going, Jesus Christ, man. And didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to apologise. I just got the vibe he was envious of me because I had my health. You know, and it stayed with me. Like, you know, that stayed with me. That's probably the hardest thing I was ever at. Like, there was no blood, no guts, no nothing. It was just like a guy telling me, man, you're blessed. Look at me. Like, what have I got? Like, you know. The guy wouldn't have even had the capability of ending his own life. Like, he was so dependent on other people. Like, and it's just a horrible way to be. Like, obviously he wasn't comfortable with it. And I'm, you know, so I never take it for granted. One of the guys in our job, he'd be considered a legend. A guy by the name of Paul Hand, real great guy, tough guy. He passed away, and I was like, right, okay, I'm going to write this about, you know, then kind of what Paul would like. Imagine if Paul was standing on my shoulder reading it, you know. So that was it. It was kind of inspired by firefighters of Paul Hand's ilk, because, you know, if they say like the souls of great sailors haunt the waves, I think same is true of firefighters, of, you know, that they never truly leave the fire ground and they're always kind of watching out for us, you know, the brotherhood, as you said. So this is the firefighter's call. It's not for fame or fortune that most deem necessary. No, I invest to don a crest for work less ordinary, nor be it want of medals, cap or polished shoes, but a calling to help others who have everything to lose, to face hell's dancing angels and suppress them with each stride, to search resolve from deep within as loved ones weep bedside, to stand with pride and dignity as comrades we remember, be it pipes' laments that fill sad air or silence in September. And may those names that have been etched in brass or granite stone haunt me in the darkness so I never fight alone. And if a colleague's head hangs low from tasting tragedy, let me offer up my shoulder for them to lean on me. But when amazing grace is played, alas for none but me, lower the flag, but raise a glass, for I'm not far from thee. I'm gathered with the old flames, looking down from God's great height, on call if aid be needed, to join you in the fight. If you're going to be vulnerable, you get to look after yourself. That's one of the reasons I always trained. But I was talking about the poetry to my brother, and brother Pat is a very smart guy, and he said to me, like, expression is the opposite of depression. You know, if you hold it in, you know, so like if your thing is your podcast, imagine if you didn't do that and you just had all this potential inside you, it would just eat you up from the inside. So your expression could be singing, it could be socializing, it could be running, going to the gym, whatever. Imagine, like, I don't know, imagine if Da Vinci wasn't allowed paint, you know, like it would drive you crazy. That's where it kind of comes from. Like, it's like, you know, expression is the opposite of depression. So when I was saying to him about poetry, is a bit like, and he's there, man, put it out there, like, and even writing stuff, so should I say I write from the heart, blah blah blah. He goes, no one cares. They'll know when they hear you. You know, so like, it's, if you're passionate about something, I mean, you don't have to do explaining. You just have to open your mouth and put it out there. Like you do with your podcast. It's easy for you to do this podcast because you're passionate about the fire. A lady got knocked down. It was quite close to where I was living in Dublin, and she got knocked down, but she was nice. That, you know, one of these kind of prams that you push, you know, these kind of square prams. She's just doing her shopping, crossing the road. A car hit her, guy on his phone, and we were talking to her. Like, I was on the fire truck, and the ambulance arrived. I was like, look, you're going to be okay. And she goes, right, you're great lads, you know. She seemed okay, but anyway, she was taken to hospital, and I met the ambulance guys later on. I said, hey, how's that lady? She goes, man, she didn't make it. I said, what? I said, her BP was internal bleeding or something, you know. It was, and I was like, are you kidding me? Like, you know, because she just kind of remembered her, but where she'd fallen, there was a little bit of blood on the curb. Not much, like, you know, but it was a kind of a warm couple of weeks, and that blood was constantly there. And I drive by that corner all the time, going to my parents, you know. So I was driving away that maybe 2 or 3 times a day, and every time, even now that the blood is well washed away, obviously, every time I go by the corner, I think of that lady, you know. You know, it's just sad. Like, I'm not like game ball, man. I don't have like nightmares over it, but it's just reminders of these, and they're everywhere. And you know yourself, they're everywhere in our city. This is called Christchurch Cathedral. And just before I start this poem, the Pale is a reference to Dublin City. It was known as the Pale. And as blue as my flag, or the Dublin flag is blue. Okay, so in a lane split by shadow from Christchurch Cathedral, another day, another dollar, courtesy of the needle. Lying limp as spilt concrete, as sunken-eyed male with pinpoint pupils, unconscious and frail. Child cries in a pram, for now all they have is no comprehension what's happened their dad, who's as blue as my flag yet feeling no pain, roulette liquid bullet shot straight in the vein. This chiseler at the apex of a spiralling slide, but I'll finish at 6 and I'll pay them no mind. God, I wish that were true, but I am what I am. My skin may be thickened, but my heart gives a damn. Bells ring from the landmark by the Anna Liffey, and amidst startled seagulls the guilt engulfs me. I've never set foot inside Christchurch Cathedral, a mere railing away from this resident evil. I must pay it a visit, sooner rather than later, for the Pale breaks my heart, though I try not to hate her. But Cathedral in her beauty will redeem me somehow. Well, I hope so, for the outside, it's ruins to me now. You numbered me with sheep, to follow weaker men, but wolf ripped off his clothing, blood flowed within my pen. You sank me to the ocean floor where talent cannot burn, but I'm the one who rises, you are just my churn. You tied my feet with boundaries, you dimmed my sight with fear, you screamed at me with insults to the point I could not hear. You caged my aspirations, you filled my thoughts with doubt, but now the cage is open, the lark is flying out. When demon drove a spear in me, a quest to kill my pride, I grabbed it by the blade and pulled it through the other side. I carry that spear with me into every single fight. The blood pours from the spearhead into everything I write. What are you doing robbing lads? I said, don't be robbing Irish lads outside an Irish bar. Like, he said, yeah man, I needed the money. And I said, you needed the money, man? He goes, yeah, my apartment is shit. And we were literally going down to sleep in Golden Gate Park, right? Because then we're working there in the morning, you know, like, and we were like, we're staying the night in the park. And he's like, man, it's rough as hell, man. And I said, look, I brought him over to a window. And now I'm drunk, right? I'll bring him over, grab him by the elbow, bring him from the window. I said, my dad says, if you wake up in the morning and you look in the mirror and you like the person you see, you're not all the way there, but you're halfway there. Now, do you like what you see in that mirror? And he just looks and says, I've done some pretty bad shit. It was just a banana story. Like I said, well look, it's not too late to change, pal. Like the stonemates, I describe them as lads that earned their beards. Do you know what I mean? Like they have them because they're up too early to have a shave, you know, they're grafters, like they're hard-working men, like you go up to the quarries and no matter how many masks they wear, they've got like lines of dust and it's in their ears, it's everywhere, like, you know, they're just hard-working guys, and the farmers as well. I looked down on here onto the fields, and I remember we were going to bed one night. It must have been midnight, and they're still out. You can see the tractor lights. You know, it reminded me of you know, you go skiing or snowboarding, you can just see the lights on the mountain, and you see the lights going around. And I'm like, they know something we don't. And sure enough, the next day it rained for about 2 weeks straight. Like, but they had to get their whatever they're bringing in done. You know, so it's just I have a lot of respect for those there.
The Firefighters podcast was created to recognize, acknowledge, inspire, and hopefully even motivate these incredible individuals who have chosen to be part of the first responder community. Our driving purpose is to create a legacy resource for the current and future generations of firefighters and first responders. We get some incredible feedback from listeners and guests, and as the podcast grows, our desire to create longevity and sustainability means that we are asking for the support of our listeners. If you want to support the podcast, if you want to get discounts to our merchandise, hoodies, clothing, coins, patches, tallies, and also access to all of the incredible documents that get shared with us from our podcast guests and sector leaders, then please head over to our Patreon page, and for just £3 a month, you can support the future of the podcast. Please finally hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on the platform you're listening, and wherever you're in the world, please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.